Hey everyone, so Yu-Gi-Oh's in a bit of a weird place right now, since Tearlament Shizu is taking basically every table at the top cut, so I wanted to change course a little bit and talk about a Digimon card that I'm absolutely going bonkers over. But to fully explain why I'm so excited for it, I'm gonna have to talk about why the Digimon TCG is the best out of all of them when it comes to fan service. Not that kind of fan service. Though Angelomon and Lady Devamon are not helping my case. Couple of things before we get started. One, this is not a how to play the Digimon TCG video. It doesn't really mesh with the idea for the video I'm going for, so if you need a refresher or just need to learn the game outright, I'll link a video that I feel explains it very well, so you can go check it out if you feel like you need it. However, if you would like a Digimon TCG explained by a person who plays Yu-Gi-Oh, well, I have committed every third Tuesday of the month to a non-Yu-Gi-Oh kind of video to kind of stretch my legs. So if you want more of it, that's what the comment section is for. And it wouldn't hurt if you shared it around too. A higher view count definitely wouldn't hurt that video's chances. Second, I want to clarify what I mean by fan service. True, there is the anime fan service, but it's really just anything that an author or group of creators will do that's just for the fans, something to get them excited or to pay off something they're invested in. For instance, if your favorite Star Wars side character in a novel, Blim Blam McGlimglue, shows up in a Disney Plus series, then that's technically a kind of fan service. Okay, with that cleared up, if you watch this channel, you probably like Yu-Gi-Oh! And if you like Yu-Gi-Oh!, you probably like other nerdly pursuits. And if you're like me, one of those is Digimon. Those two and Pokemon formed the holy trinity of Saturday morning cartoons, and another thing they all have in common are their infamous card games. I'd like to say successful, but the Digimon flavor suffered from some crippling localization. But for the past year and change, a new Digimon TCG has risen from the ashes. Now, I'm no expert on either the TCG, or the shows, or the games, but I've gotta say, as a casual fan of all those things, I've never felt more rewarded for being a fan of the entire franchise than I have with this game, and that all comes down to its masterful execution of references. Over the course of 25 years, Digimon has had 9 series, a multitude of movies, and an avalanche of video games, each with their own signature characters, monsters, and world. So I'm pretty confident in saying that if you like digital monsters, you've gotten attached to at least one or two facets of the entire franchise. And the way that they're able to translate that into game mechanics, and how well they do it, is one of the things that keeps me coming back. But why does that make the Digimon TCG so special? After all, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon have their own gigantic roster of games, shows, and movies, so what makes this so special? Well, I think it comes down to Digimon being the perfect middle point between Pokemon being completely divorced from anything about the games they came from, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Being completely indistinguishable from the anime it's based on. And now I have to explain what I mean by that, so let's start with Yu-Gi-Oh! Pre-7s, each core set had cards that featured in the anime, but I wouldn't really call that references. Like, if I play Goki Suprex, I'm not thinking,
"Oh man, this is just like when Onizuka used it!"
Because it's exactly like when he uses it. He and I play Gokis exactly the same way, and because of that, there's no distance between that to really appreciate how game mechanics would translate that effect. Like, I play Yu-Gi-Oh! In my world, the characters play it in their world, so barring any supernatural shenanigans which don't really factor into the game anyway, it's basically the same. Now, that's not to say there are no cards like this. Rainbow Bridge of Salvation, for instance, is basically an anime scene, using monsters in that scene to base its activation requirements off of, while the Field Spell Search and the Crystal Beast Search are meant to emulate the dimensional tomfoolery going on, as well as Jesse's involvement. But more often than not, the closest thing we get to a reference is getting cards released that were previously anime exclusive, and that's not so much a reference as a copy-paste. When I see Mathematician, I don't feel rewarded for keeping up with Bastion Masawa's various antics, I just see a way to foolish a card to the grave from the deck. Sure, you can send Carbonetton if you want to make a flavorful deck, but it's probably more likely that you're just going to send a Shaddoll. So GX Knowledge does very little to enhance my appreciation for this card. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have Pokemon cards. Now, to be fair, this isn't a complete disconnect between the card game and the video game. Both have you assembling teams of Pokemon, duking it out in a series of one-on-one encounters, using attacks to knock out the opposing team. I'll even go so far as to believe the prize card system is a good way to emulate a 6-Pokemon team without making deck building too restrictive. But from there, it's a complete disconnect. A majority of attacks and abilities are game exclusive. Pokemon only use attacks if they've accumulated enough energy, which is kind of the inverse of the PowerPoint mechanic. And while the series is no stranger to the odd Mega or Dynamax transformation, the kind of forms in the card game are off the charts. EX, GX, Delta, Prism, Break, V, VMAX, Single, Rapid, and Fusion Strike, those last three being signature calling cards of a single Pokemon that were stretched out to fill an entire rotation of cards. A majority of items also never show up in any medium besides the card game, and while some are familiar faces, you have to really stretch to make some connections. Like, I could see the Professor's search for knowledge as being analogous to a variety of draw effects. But how does Lysander's Trump card, a card that recycles both players' discard piles back into the deck, sync up with his in-game motivations? As with everything, there are some exceptions, but they pretty much prove the rule. The Pokemon TCG might as well be its own continuity for how distant it is from the game it's based on. Alright, so we've established our two extremes, now comes the hard part, showing that Digimon hits that sweet spot. And I think a big point in its favor is how diverse all of Digimon is, while still maintaining a central through line. Seriously, all of Digimon has a human meeting a Digimon that they either pair really well with or have contrasting personalities if you want to add a little bit of spice. They go on adventures, with the human taking a backseat in combat while the Digimon does the fighting, with the human providing energy and encouragement to help their Digimon partner reach their full potential. Seriously, this is like almost every kind of Digimon content out there, and what I really like is how the Digimon TCG's core gameplay reflects that through line. Real quick explanation here. The cards can be divided into 3 distinct groups. One of them is options, which is basically anything that's not a character, and the other 2 are Digimon, duh, which handle basically all the combat and are how you win the game, with tamer cards acting as support, sticking around the field to provide you with a variety of beneficial effects, the most important of which being memory, the game's main resource. And while you spend memory to do basically everything, the one you'll be using it for most often is digivolving, kinda like how tamers help their partners digivolve. And that just scratches the surface, though I'd be remiss if I skipped out on another surface level detail: the art. While basically any Digimon can show up in any version of the franchise, the right art in the right place can mean a lot to the right player. The biggest example I can think of off the top of my head are the arts referencing the original Digimon World video game. Now, anyone who's tried out that ridiculous game will recognize some locations. For instance, Weedmon here is clearly shopping at Monochromon's shop, the Soulmon are wandering around the Overdell Cemetery, and you even have King Sukamon on their throne in Trash Mountain. Look, it's even got a Sukamon that it's de-digivolving into a rookie like it does in the game. It's even got the wireframing, for crying out loud. So yeah, that's cool and all, but, you know, it's card art. You know, if you have decades of nostalgia, you might as well use it to elicit feelings of nostalgia. And the core game mechanics could just be a coincidence. So what specifically does the Digimon TCG do to reflect the franchise in game mechanics? And boy howdy do I have some examples for you. First of which being Leomon. Now if there's one thing you know about Digimon, it's that, well, it's about kids with really big and mean Tamagotchis. But the second thing you might know is that Leomon is kind of a meme. Whenever they show up, it's inevitable that they bite the dust. It was touching the first time it happened, but then it just kind of kept happening. And now it's not on every Leomon printed, but several of them, and members of their Digivolution lines, do have on-deletion effects, and if you think that's just a coincidence, they're not the only one. Wizardmons have on-deletion effects too. So, whenever those effects trigger, you can thank that wonderful line for their help in defeating Devimon, and for that magnificent magician for sacrificing themselves to save Garomon's life. What a hero. But it gets even bigger than that, because the tiny choices for individual Digimon ripple out into set-wide mechanics that are built to capture those little sparks of magic. And I could go on and on about how each and every one of those really works, but I want this video to be done this century, so suffice it to say, I feel like DNA Digivolution is handled particularly well. The plug-in cards from Digimon Tamers are worded in a very clever way to avoid the usual color restrictions, and of course the most powerful, Spirit Digivolution from Frontier, a mechanic that allows you to digivolve certain Digimon on top of your Tamers, which is the whole deal of Frontiers. But what I find most impressive is how they implemented one of their most recent mechanics, Digicross. Now, in the 6th series, Digimon Fusion, or Cross Wars, depending on how you want to go for it, Digimon don't really digivolve. There's no rookie to champion to ultimate. Instead, the Tamers have a special device called a fusion loader, which they use to combine Digimon together in a kind of fusion. Seems weird they didn't try to expand on the whole DNA digivolving thing, but I'm just a fan, what do I know? But that begs the question, how do you incorporate a series where digivolving isn't a thing into a card game where digivolving is the whole mechanic? Well, you could just half-ass it and just pretend like they digivolve. Or, you can flip it on its head. See, not only can you digivolve Digimon, you can just play them out of your hand. However, this is largely discouraged because unless they have an effect that triggers when played from the hand instead of being digivolved, you're kind of losing out. They cost more memory to do that, and you miss out on the sweet draw you get whenever you digivolve. But Digicross takes advantage of this. So instead of building up a single Digimon over time, you just play the end result out of your hand. Then, if you have Digimon listed on it for its Digicross requirements among your hand or field, you can put them underneath that Digimon as if you had digivolved it on top of them, and for each one, it reduces the memory cost of that Digimon. Kind of like you're loading the Digimon in there. But you might not always have all the Digimon you need to reach the full potential of the Digicross savings, and that's why they added another mechanic to go along with it, Save. When destroyed, a Digimon with save goes under one of your Tamers instead of going to the trash. Now, there's no restriction on what Tamer it can go under, but this generally means it's going to be trapped under that Tamer forever. Unless you use some of the Tamers that were made specifically for the Digicross mechanic, having the ability to use Digimon underneath them, as well as in your hand or on your field, to fulfill Digicross requirements. It's almost like your Tamer is gathering Digimon to fusion load into your big boss, like in the show. But even then, after that huge explanation of a wonderfully realized mechanic, we're still kind of playing within the established conventions of the game. We found a way to get a Digimon onto the field in a weird way, certainly, but we're still attacking our opponent with Digimon to lower their security to win the game. How far are designers willing to bend the rules of the game to allow for flavorful mechanics? And with that segue here, I get to show you the card that inspired this entire video. A piece of design so inspired that it got its hooks into my brain the second I saw it and has not let go since. Everyone, meet Marcus Damon. Don't let the lack of goggles fool you. This is a certified Digimon protagonist, specifically from the Data Squad series. And I'm going to run you through what this card does first before I tell you how amazingly perfect it is. So, at the start of your main phase, if you control a Digimon with Agumon or Greymon in its name, you can pay 1 memory to have Damon be treated as a Digimon with 3000 power that can't Digivolve. And when this Tamer is suspended, which attacking will let you do, you can Digivolve any of your Digimon into a yellow Digimon in your hand with Greymon in its name without paying its Digivolution cost. So now we have a Tamer that just gets to fight. No Digivolving up into hybrid forms. Heck, this disallows you from doing that. So Marcus Damon does have to get his hands dirty, which honestly is really on brand. See, in Data Squad, Tamers normally use Digital Natural Ability, or DNA, to charge their Digivices and allow their Digimon to Digivolve. But Marcus here has kind of a problem. He can't do that. At least not normally. To get the energy needed to charge his Digivice, he needs to square up against an evil Digimon, capable of all manner of heinous things, mind you, and give it a mean right hook. That's right, this 14-year-old punches Digimon on the regular, and that is reflected impeccably in what this card does. Not only can it attack security and suspended Digimon like normal, it also has that free Digivolution effect which mimics the DNA charge of Data Squad. And the best part about all this, I am 100% sure that we will never get another tamer that does this. We might get other Marcus Daemons that have a similar effect, but there will never be a card that represents a different tamer that has an effect similar to this. Unless I'm missing out on a character that goes just as hard, it just wouldn't fit. And the fact that I can say that with such confidence, that they wouldn't just reuse the effect on a tamer that it wouldn't be appropriate for just to print it, proves just how dedicated the designers are to making sure that the cards feel like their source material, that they reflect the characters, the ideas, and the Digimon that they've grown attached to all these years. Now, I'm not saying other card games can't do that. Like I said, exceptions exist. But as a whole, the Digimon TCG is the best at capturing those feelings of nostalgia and letting you play them again in a fresh, wonderful new way. Now, if you could just print some Digimon World 2 cards so I can play as a Digibeetle, I'll be a happy man. Okay, I'm all done geeking out, and I'm going to start just looking at the script now, because that's basically the core of the video all out of here. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say about my ideas here. Am I on point? Am I full of it? In fact, if I am full of it, I definitely want you to comment down below, because like I said, I'm a casual fan of a lot of these things, so there's definitely some perspectives that I am not taking into account because I don't know them, and I'd rather learn than just being internet talky guy. Before you click off, gotta say this, couple of favors here. If you've been on YouTube long enough, you might know that when your favorite creator does not talk about the thing that they usually talk about, the algorithm tanks it because it doesn't know what to do with it. Not malicious, I'm sure, AI usually isn't, but it's just not coded in a way to help promote that. So, what I need you to do, easy as pie, if you can click the like button. If you want to subscribe for more stuff, that would be really great, but you can click those two buttons and those are a great way to support me. Another way you can help is if you like seeing stuff like this and you want to circumvent the algorithm, share this around. You know, this is ostensibly from a Yu-Gi-Oh player's perspective, so maybe other players of Yu-Gi-Oh will enjoy this. Maybe you have some Digimon friends that play the game that would like to hear someone from outside the usual fandom talk about it in a positive way. Maybe you just have, like, someone who's bored and needs to hear a talkie man talk about something for 10 or so minutes. I think this is a great way to spend that time. And if you've done all that other stuff, the biggest, best way you can support me is by pledging to the Patreon. For all of your favorite creators, having a stable income through Patreon is one of the best ways you can help us, because then we don't have to worry so much about the algorithm. We don't become accountable to YouTube's ad revenue system. We become accountable to the people who like our stuff. And if we don't have to worry about ad revenue, we can make silly stuff like this more often. And by we, I guess I'm saying we to make it sound less like I'm asking you to help me specifically, but I am, and the more money I have in the Patreon, the more I can make goofy, silly side videos like this. And also, if you do that, you get to be part of these credits, which I'm going to transition to right now! Today's episode was brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander Harry, the ominous benefactor, Nebula Navigator's 3rd Dynasty, Adam Zajdel, Avi Chali, Kane Senpai, Cameron Berg, Cozy Boat 275, Eric, Frankie, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh, Gloomba 331, Great Big Pillock, Ironic, John Manji, Julius Sneezer, Larakia, Mana Charge, Marluxia is a Girl, Meteornus, Michael Madsen, Mighty Action X, Muzuki Clark, Neo Trinity, Panther J, Rebel King Lucifer, Rem T Bright, RJ the Jank Monarch, Ruxith Sarani, Sophie, apparently, The Fresh Prince of Conair, The Wizard Moose, True Neutral, Xander Wolfensberger and Zyrus, Cosmic Crusaders Ariel Kersey, Bear Sharktopus Studios, Chaz Ghost, Chris Kessler, Corbinisms, Dallas Modeste, Emily, Eva Padilla, Howling Zangetsu, Herbal D, Jesus Garcia, Kale the Dragon, King Scarlet Yu-Gi-Oh, Lord Whoop-De-Doo, Manga Pages, Marion James E. Picata, Matt Simmons, Nitromo, Sarah Lo Sulshi, Shaquille Solomon, Shooting Star 3300, Starlord 777, Super Purd, Tucker Ordorn and the legendary Raven, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. I'm only able to continue doing this thanks to the support of these lovely people, so if you'd like to be a part of these credits, as well as help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, please check out my YouTube membership or Patreon links in the description to see if I have anything you'd like on offer. Oh, and if you aren't a big Digimon player but want to see some games just to see how they play out, check out some videos from a couple of channels I'm really fond of. Rust Marrow and Card Protagonist both are really cool to look at and are good resources for kind of getting into the flow of the game. I know they helped me a lot. And if you give them a watch, let them know I sent you. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.